Have you ever wondered what happens when someone powerful chooses to see with their heart instead of their job title? Not every hero wears a cape. Sometimes he carries a little notebook and walks into a place just looking for a burger, but leaves with a mission to change lives. That's exactly what happened with the owner's son at the diner. He saw something that even he, used to the behind the scenes of the family business, could barely believe. In a world where most people prefer to judge without knowing, label without listening, and maintain appearances rather than seek the truth, a simple visit sparked a transformation no one expected. It wasn't a coincidence. It was destiny, but not the mystical kind. This was the type of destiny built through action, empathy, and the courage to stir what no one else dares to touch. And if you think that's an exaggeration, just wait until you see what was hiding behind that hot grill and those grease-stained uniforms. This story isn't just about justice. It's about the power each of us has to break patterns and shine a light where only silence existed. And the craziest part? It all started with a small detail most people would have ignored. Curious to know what it was? Then get ready, because what comes next will change the way you see the people around you. He arrived like someone who didn't want to be noticed. The boss's son, Jordan, walked in through the front door of the diner wearing a simple shirt. No fuss, no bodyguards, no attention-seeking. But his eyes, his eyes said it all. Every movement, every expression from the staff, every corner of that place. He observed it all like someone carrying a mission deep in his chest. And no one, absolutely no one, had any idea what was going on behind that calm gaze. Jordan was taking notes in a worn-out notebook, the kind that looks too old to matter, but inside it, stories were being written that time couldn't erase. Stories of waiters treated unfairly, of a kitchen helper who worked double shifts and barely got noticed, of exchanged glances that spoke of fear, exhaustion, and even hope. What's curious is that no one noticed this detail. Know why? Because true observers don't need to shout to be heard. They read between the lines of life. And that's the kind of sensitivity a lot of people are missing. Instead of showing up and imposing, Jordan showed up and listened. And there lies a great lesson. Those who listen understand far more than those who are always talking. If you walked into a place silently today, what would you see? If you paid attention to people's silences, what would you discover? Sometimes, the biggest secrets hide in the smallest details, and that's where everything begins to change. Behind fake smiles and shallow hugs, poison drips quietly. While Jordan kept writing, he had no idea that behind the daily routine of the diner, well-laid traps were waiting. And worse, they were set by the very ones pretending to help. The real villains don't wear black or have evil laughs. They wear ties, speak softly, and know exactly where to strike. They're masters at twisting stories, at manipulating facts until the victim looks like the culprit. It's always the same. The employee who's late is labeled lazy, even if they walked for hours due to no transportation. The one crying in the bathroom is unstable, when all she really needs is support. Real stories get suffocated by convenient narratives, and anyone who dares to question it ends up isolated. This applies to every environment, school, workplace, even inside your home. The danger doesn't lie in the scream, but in the whisper laced with poison. But see, every lie needs maintenance, and that's when the castle starts to crumble. Because it only takes someone to observe with their heart, like Jordan did, to realize something is out of place. And when a truth begins to shine, no matter how small, it has the power to illuminate even the darkest shadows. What Jordan didn't know yet was that the truth was about to find a surprising way to emerge. At the back of a dusty storage room, where no one ever stepped anymore, an almost forgotten old box caught his attention. It was one of those cardboard boxes that seem insignificant, but carry more weight than they appear. Inside, Jordan found old receipts, records of unpaid overtime, handwritten notes with anonymous outbursts, and even photos of embarrassing situations caused by those at the top. It was as if time itself had kept that evidence, waiting for someone just enough to find it. And just like that, no spotlights, no cameras, the hidden stories began to find a voice. Jordan could have kept it to himself, used it as a weapon, or thrown it away to avoid trouble. But he didn't. He chose a path few ever take. He quietly handed everything to a humble employee who had always believed in the truth. It was like passing an invisible baton, and in that gesture, a strength bloomed that even he didn't know he had. It's curious how something that seemed small becomes giant when it carries purpose. The employee, with trembling hands and teary eyes, took the box straight to where it mattered. And from that moment on, it could no longer be ignored. The truth didn't need to scream. It just needed to exist. And so, for the first time, the gears began to turn, and someone powerful was about to hear a whisper impossible to ignore. It happened in an ordinary hallway, between the noise of deep fryers and the smell of oil, something no one expected. A simple "thank you," whispered by the employee as she handed over the box, made Jordan stop for a second. That thank you carried more weight than an entire speech. It was the kind of gesture you don't learn in college, can't buy in a store, and can't teach with words, only by example. And in that instant, a dormant truth began to echo with force. Jordan shared the story on social media, without naming names, without making himself the hero. He just let the stories speak for themselves. Within hours, the post spread like wildfire. Thousands related to it. Others reported similar cases, and what was once invisible became front-page news. Funny how a simple, heartfelt gesture can break down walls that rehearsed speeches never could. And that's when the game changed. The one who had just been a dishwasher became a symbol of resistance. Those who used to laugh behind his back now hid in shame. The stories, once silenced, took center stage, and the audience wouldn't stop applauding. But this shift had more layers, and what was coming would reveal that the real culprits were much higher up than anyone imagined. As the uproar grew on social media and the buzz filled the diner, Jordan decided to dig deeper. But this time, he wasn't alone anymore. A small group of employees, inspired by the stories revealed, began searching through what had once been untouchable: the office files, the forgotten emails, the internal cameras. It was like pulling a loose thread from a rotten fabric. The more they pulled, the more filth appeared. And what they found was far bigger than anyone had ever imagined. Tampered spreadsheets, fake contracts, payments that never reached the employees. An entire system built to deceive without leaving a trace. And the most shocking part? The orders came from the top. It wasn't just a malicious manager or a cruel supervisor. It was a network. An old, cold, and efficient scheme that relied on the silence of those who were afraid. It felt like being inside a suspense series, but this was real life, with real people suffering. Jordan knew he couldn't act impulsively. So he gathered everything, every document, every email, every video. He built a solid dossier, impossible to refute. And while the public was beginning to suspect there was something bigger behind those stories, he was preparing the move that would change everything. But this time, there would be no shouting. What was coming next would be as silent as it was powerful. Jordan didn't call the press, didn't cause a scene, didn't record a tearful video. He knew true justice doesn't need a stage, it needs evidence. With the dossier in hand, he took everything straight to the legal department of the parent company, in a quiet but impactful meeting. It was like bringing down a house of cards with a single calculated move. No yelling, no finger pointing, just showing the raw, undeniable truth. That was strategy. Days later, without prior notice, the names behind the corruption started to disappear from the company. They were let go discreetly, without fanfare, as if they had never existed. But those who were paying attention noticed. The shift in the air, the smiles returning to employees' faces, the workplace feeling lighter. Justice had been served, and it didn't need a declared war. Just a watchful heart and the courage to do the right thing. It's impressive what can be achieved when you choose wisdom over anger. Many people think that to win, you need to clash, to explode. But sometimes, the most effective strike is the one no one sees coming. Jordan proved that with mastery. And while he carried out justice with grace, another feeling began to grow in his heart. A gesture few have the courage to make. Michael, the employee who had been invisible for years, ignored, even humiliated by some, was now seen differently. When everything came to light, many of those who once looked down on him tried to get close, to save face, to justify the unjustifiable. And there, he had two options: feed resentment or extend a hand. And you know what he did? He forgave, not out of weakness, but out of strength. From understanding that holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to suffer, he chose freedom. That forgiveness didn't come with speeches or forced hugs. It came through actions. Michael began to help even those who had looked down on him. He mentored new employees, encouraged the team to stay united, and never rubbed his past in anyone's face. It's like the saying goes, you recognize a giant not by their size, but by their posture after a fall. And if you think that's hard, try starting small, by forgiving someone who cut you off in traffic or that colleague who ignored you in the work group. That choice changed not just his life, but the entire environment. The stories that came after were no longer about pain, but about overcoming, about change. Michael became a living example that greatness isn't about defeating others, it's about conquering yourself. And that spirit of transformation began to spread, until it reached somewhere no one expected, the community itself. What began as an act of quiet justice turned into something much greater. The community, moved by the stories that emerged from the diner, decided to come together. No one had much, but each gave what they could: a door, a bag of cement, a free afternoon to help with the construction. The result? A new home for Michael, built with sweat, care, and gratitude. It wasn't a castle, but it had something money can't buy: dignity. And that, my friend, is worth more than any prize. It was there, between simple laughter and calloused hands, that he discovered the true meaning of giving back. It wasn't a check or a fancy title. It was looking around and seeing people genuinely rooting for him. And nowadays, that's pure gold. Stories like this remind us that the greatest wealth comes from human connections, the kind built with truth, affection, and sincere intention. That's when you realize you're no longer alone. And guess what? That home became a gathering place. Kids played in the yard, neighbors came together on Sundays, and Michael, who once washed dishes in the back, was now the host of news stories. But something else was happening too. Something beyond the diner, beyond the neighborhood. A seed was germinating, and what would sprout from that ground would touch the lives of many. Durant, the one many knew only as the dishwasher, was now remembered by another title, a symbol of strength and kindness. He never asked for recognition, never sought the spotlight. He just wanted to do his job and help where he could. But the truth is, when someone lives with integrity, the world notices. And that's exactly what happened. His story became a mural at the local school, inspired a local documentary, and even became the theme of school essays. Children now pointed and said, "I want to be like Durant." The most curious thing is that he remained the same. He laughed easily, helped without expecting anything in return, and listened like few others could. But the impact of his actions grew by the day. The stories that blossomed from his courage created space for others to share their own pain and their healing. It was as if a spark had ignited something collective. And that, my friend, is true power, transforming without needing to command. The diner, which was once just another commercial spot, now carried a different aura. Tourists stopped by just to visit Durant's place. Young people came seeking advice. Companies wanted to learn how to replicate that culture. But no one knew that, behind the scenes, something even bigger was being stitched together. Something that could change not just that neighborhood, but the lives of hundreds of other people. Inspired by everything he saw, lived, and felt, Jordan decided he couldn't let those stories fade away. So he gathered community leaders, educators, and local entrepreneurs to create a social program that went beyond charity. It was education, training, and real opportunity. People who never had a chance were now learning about finance, cooking, customer service, even entrepreneurship. The mission was simple: break the cycle of exploitation and plant a new path of dignity. Michael became one of the first mentors. Durant became a keynote speaker. Young people who were once ready to drop out now dreamed big, eyes full of light. It was no longer about what had happened inside the diner. It was about what could happen anywhere someone chose to act with courage and heart. The pain of the past became a bridge to the future. And that's what separates those who merely survive from those who transform. In a short time, the program gained visibility. Other cities began replicating the model, and companies stepped in to offer support. But the most beautiful part? It was seeing the faces of each person touched by these stories. Because when someone breaks the cycle, they don't just change their own life. They change the lives of generations. And it was right there, where everything began in silence, that the greatest revolution took root, with deep roots and fruits no one ever imagined. Now tell me, after all this, can we really pretend we don't have any responsibility for what we see, hear, and feel every day? How many stories are passing right by you, invisible, just waiting for someone to truly see them, like Jordan did? Maybe you're surrounded by people who only need a chance, a gesture, a genuine look. And maybe, just maybe, you are the one who's meant to take that first step. The question is, what are you going to do with this knowledge now? Will you just watch and move on with your life as if nothing happened? Or will you be the kind of person who hears a story like this and decides to become a force for change in your job, your home, your community? Because, in the end, we either contribute to the problem or to the solution. If this story touched you in any way, if it inspired you, made you think, or sparked something inside, then take this moment. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join me on this journey. Because here, you'll find many more stories like this. Real stories. Stories that transform. Stories that prove the world changes when someone, even in silence, decides to take action.